Hello, future sugar makers. Welcome to Brooksvale Park. Okay, for this part of today's maple sugaring program, we're going to talk about the history of maple sugaring, okay? And again, maple sugaring is making something good to eat from the sap of a tree. And that tree that we like to tap is the sugar maple tree. History tells us that human beings first used the sap from the sugar maple tree about 8,000 years ago, and perhaps right here in the Hamden area. The group of people living here then were the Native Americans. They were a woodland people. Everything they used came from the forest. They probably observed the birds, such as the yellow-bellied sapsucker, drilling holes in a certain tree and drinking the sap, and that probably clued them in. So they discovered it. How did they do it initially? Well, they have to boil the sap down. So how they did it was using a hollow log, filling it with sap. The Native Americans would remove a hot stone from the fire using a forked stick, bring it over to their log of maple sap, put that rock into the sap. There would be a lot of sizzling, and the goal is to have the water evaporate and the sugar stay behind. They would first make syrup in the log. Then they would keep boiling because the product that they wanted was maple sugar, not maple syrup, maple sugar. And that's why it's called maple sugaring, because that was the desired product back for the Native Americans and for the settlers as they came to this country. As the settlers brought new iron technology to this country, it became easier to boil the sap down in an iron pot versus a hollow log. So this is an example of a setup that the settlers would create with a fire underneath that pot, and they would keep adding sap as it boiled down, and eventually they would create syrup right in that log, in that pot. And eventually they would create maple sugar right in that pot. So iron had a big impact on the process of maple sugaring. Okay. If you're going to try your hand at maple sugaring, one of the first things you need to do is to be able to identify a sugar maple tree. I think we're somewhat familiar with the shape of the sugar maple leaf, a 5-lobed, single-stemmed leaf. And this is the color often in the fall of the sugar maple leaf. But this time of the year, when you're going out to tap your tree, the trees have no leaves. So what is another method of telling a sugar maple tree? Well, the best way is to look at the branching of the tree. Most trees have alternate branching, which means a stem comes out on one side, and then further up, a stem comes out on the other side. And that's called alternate branching. However, sugar maples are one of the few trees that have opposite branching. Wherever a twig comes off the stem on one side, another twig comes off that stem on the other side. Thus the name opposite branching. And that's a very good way to tell a sugar maple. The other way is that the buds on a sugar maple tree are pointy and sharp. You'll actually feel a sharp on your finger there. That is very unique to sugar maple trees, having sharp, pointy buds. And lastly, we joke that one of the best ways to tell a sugar maple tree this time of the year is it's the tree with the bucket on it.
Hello, I'm going to discuss today some of the tools you need when you tap a tree. The first is a hammer, a small hammer, not to crush your spouse or your spouse, just enough to get the job done. A tubing cutter, used to cut the modern tubing that we use out in the sugar bush. This fancy contraption is used to attach the spouts to the tubing. Doing this by hand when it's cold out is painful and impossible. And we have our electric drill to drill our holes, and a variety of drill bits depending on what tap or spile we're going to be using. Before we can tap a tree, we have to determine if the tree is old enough or large enough to tap it. To do that, we have to measure the diameter of the tree, which is the area between here and here. But because when the tree is up in the air, we can't do that. So we have to measure the circumference of the tree. And I know that 9 inches in diameter is somewhere around 29 inches in circumference. And this tree here is 32 inches, so I can tap this tree. When tapping a tree, using a spout, you want to go about belly button high on the tree, go straight in, and come straight out. If I was using the old-fashioned spile, I would go up on a slight angle. When I'm tapping the tree, I want to make sure there's nice yellow wood coming out of the drill bit. I see some nice yellow wood. I go in and I come out, trying not to leave any wood clips in. You'll hear the spout sound like it's cracking. It's not. But when it stops cracking and thuds, it tells me it's in all the way. Here's the thud. There are 3 types of spiles or spouts that we use here at Brooksvale Park. The old-fashioned metal, the replacement or the old-fashioned metal for buckets, and the new spouts that go with the plastic. You notice the size of the hole I'm going to have to drill to put that into the tree versus the size of the hole here. This is why we've gone when we use buckets for the small spile. Gives the tree a chance to heal quickly. Now we're going to tap a live tree. Again, belly button high. Straight in, looking for yellow wood. Let the drill do the work. Nice yellow wood. Straight out. You can see the sap is just starting to come out now. There it is. In our next video, we'll be taking you inside our sugar shack. And in here, this is where we take our sap and turn it into maple syrup. Next video, we'll show you how that's done. Thank you for visiting Brooksvale Park.